Welcome to Tabletop Creator. In this tutorial, you'll learn how to design, build, and prototype your own board game from start to finish, from components and templates to data, variables, and export. Let's get started. Before we begin, let's get Tabletop Creator set up. You can download it directly from our website. Just choose your operating system, open the downloaded file, unzip it, and run the installer, either the .exe file on Windows or the .pkg file on Mac. If you're using a Mac, you can find the app in your Applications folder once it's installed. If this is your first time launching Tabletop Creator, it may take a few moments to load. Once installed, open the app and log into your account. I already have a Pro license, so I'll log in. But if you haven't upgraded yet, you can still use the app and design freely until you reach the limit. All right, now we're signed in. The first thing we'll take a look at is the Settings panel. In the General Settings, you can find options like the language, the UI theme, whether you prefer light or dark mode, and the measurement units. You'll also find performance information, AI settings, and keyboard shortcuts. And if you'd like to connect with the community, there's a direct link to our Discord server. All right, now it's time to see how to work with projects. Before creating a new one, let's quickly look at how to load existing templates. Tabletop Creator includes some default templates you can use as a starting point. For example, a Cards Against People template, which might remind you of a very well-known game. This is just a mod for demonstration purposes. To load a template, simply create a new folder on your computer, save the project there, and then open it from the app. Once loaded, you'll have access to the templates, which you can view, edit, and customize. Now let's create a new game. Click on New, and a new Tabletop Creator project will open by default. I'm going to rename it. Nothing fancy for now, just a simple name. What we see here is our first item set. You can think of an item set as a collection, like a deck of cards or a group of related components. Let's rename it. In this case, I'm going to create my first card set. If you look at the upper left side of the screen, you'll find the options to create different sets or decks. Here you have access to a range of standard sizes and formats, including cards, tokens, and boards. For example, I'm going to create a mini Euro card set, which I'll rename as my second card set. I'm also going to add a set of tokens and name it. As you can see, you can create multiple sets based on predefined blueprints, or what we can think of as templates. Each set is linked to a blueprint. If you open this section, you'll see all the available blueprints, for example, Blueprint 1, Blueprint 2, and Blueprint 3. To stay organized, I'm going to rename them so I can easily identify which blueprint belongs to each set. Now, let's say I want to customize my cards. For example, I might want to remove the default image, change the color from purple to red, and adjust the overall style. Instead of editing each item individually, I can modify the blueprint. If I go to the Components section, I can see all the items I've created and how they follow the structure of the blueprint. So when I update the blueprint, all the items in that set automatically update as well. The same applies to my second card set. If I go to its blueprint and make changes, for example, switch the color to green or edit the text, all the items in that set will instantly reflect those changes. This is how you maintain consistency across your design without having to edit each component one by one. All right, now let's dive into the different types of panels, their properties, and how we can use them to design our components. On the left side, you'll find the Panels section. You can think of this as a layer system, similar to tools like Figma or Illustrator. Each panel acts like an individual layer, and groups of panels act as your main layers. On the right side, you'll find the Properties panel. Whenever you select a panel, you can modify its properties, such as size, color, shadows, and more. Now, let's begin with procedural panels. I'll create a new one. You can think of procedural panels as shape-based elements. First, I'll change its color to orange and rename it. Then I'll create another one to build a simple structure, like a background and a frame, combining different colors. You can also switch between basic and advanced properties depending on the level of control you need. Now, let's create different shapes, not just rectangles. At first, it's not visible because it's behind other panels, so I'll bring it forward in the layer hierarchy. Now I can change its shape, for example, into a polygon or a star. I'll increase the number of vertices and adjust the rotation to create an 8-point star. This will serve as a background element for my card. Now let's move on to the text panel. To add one, click the text panel icon. I'll use it to display a character name, since each card represents a different one. You can edit the text, change color, apply outlines, and choose fonts. For example, I'll use a blue color with a white outline for better readability. You can also control alignment, spacing, and positioning. Text panels are not only for names, you can also use them for numbering. I'll add a number 1 to this card. Now, if I want to place that same number in another corner, I could duplicate it manually, but instead I'll use a link panel, and then link it to the original number. Now it automatically mirrors the same content and properties. If I change the number once, all linked panels update automatically. QR panels allow you to add interactive elements. You can link the websites, apps, or any external content. Just enter the destination and the code is generated automatically. You can also customize its appearance. In addition to QR codes, you can also use formats like PDF 417. Now let's move on to image panels. I'll add one and rename it. You can either upload an image or generate one using AI. There's a built-in media gallery with backgrounds, textures, and icons. I'll upload an image from my computer. For example, a small mushroom illustration. You can adjust properties like tint and styling. Now let's generate an image using AI. When you click Generate Image, you'll see two fields. In the first field, you describe the image you want to create. You can also generate a random prompt if you want to experiment. In this case, I'll describe something similar to my mushroom. A happy, smiley, cute cartoon-like. Then you can choose the style. We have some predefined styles you can use, or you can simply describe your own. And also, you can choose a format and if you want your new image to have transparent background or not. And just like that, we've generated an image with AI, and we can see the result directly on screen. We could keep iterating until we get the perfect one, but for now, let's stick with our current images. They're pretty cute already. Now, I'm going to add another text panel. In this case, I want to display the group because we have two categories, fruits and vegetables. For example, this card is a vegetable. Next, I'll add a procedural panel to support this text. I'll use a rectangle, reduce the opacity slightly to keep the main card color visible, and round the corners to better match the overall style. Here, I'll include a description of how this card defends itself from attackers, which, in our case, will be animals. And in a moment, we'll create those animal cards as well. Then I'll place the text over this panel. For the animal cards, I want each one to include a name, a number, an image, and a description of how they attack. So let's create one as an example. I'll call this one Bully Donkey, our slightly chaotic character. And for its attack, let's say it uses a Class 2 attack. Now at this point, in many design tools, the next step would be pretty manual, but this is where Tabletop Creator really stands out. Instead of editing items one by one, we've been building everything through blueprints, and now we can take it one step further. We can import data directly into our project. This can be a CSV file, an Excel file, or even a Google Sheet. First, let me show you the Excel file I've been working with. When designing a game, you'll usually have something like this: a structured list of your components and their attributes. For example, in my case, I have numbers, character names, groups, defense and attacking values, and also the path to my images, which I have saved in my computer. And I have separate tabs for my different sets. In this last tab, I only have some color codes. They are there to help me organize things visually. So we select to import an Excel sheet. Then we select the file. Once we import the file, we'll see a section called Data Mapping. Here, Tabletop Creator shows us how the columns from our Excel file can be connected to our project in Tabletop Creator. So essentially, we're telling the system, this column corresponds to this variable in my design. The first column shows us the values coming from our Excel file. For example, I have two tabs: fruits and vegetables, animals. Each tab represents a different set of components. Here, we can choose which set each tab corresponds to. So in my case, fruits and vegetables corresponds to my second card set, and animals corresponds to my first card set. Now, let's look at how the properties are mapped. For example, in the fruits and vegetables tab, number maps to card number, as the title of the column on my Excel is number, but in my blueprint design, the number panels stands for card number. Following this logic, character name maps to character name, group maps to group, defense maps to defense, image path maps to the image panel, which in my case is named image. We need to repeat the same process for the second tab, in this case, the animals tab. Another important option is how we handle existing items. In this case, I'm going to replace them. So I'll choose the option to delete existing items before importing the new ones. This is useful because the items we created earlier were just for demonstration. Have you seen the warning icon? Sometimes you'll see a warning icon. This happens when Tabletop Creator can't automatically match a column with a property. The warning signs act as a guide. They show us what still needs to be defined or mapped manually. If everything was to match perfectly, no warning would appear. The best way to avoid warnings is to stay consistent. Make sure your panel names in your design match the column names in your Excel file. If everything is clearly named, the mapping becomes almost automatic. All right, now everything is ready. Let's import the data and see the result. And once everything is mapped correctly, all our components will automatically populate with the right data. In just one step, we've gone from a spreadsheet to a complete set of fully designed cards. Each row in the Excel file is now a unique component with its own name, attributes, and visuals. No manual duplication, no repetitive editing, everything is generated automatically. Now, working with data doesn't end here. We can also export our project data, edit it externally, and then import it back. This makes it much faster to apply changes across large sets of components. So first, let's export some data from our project. I'll choose a simplified export so we're not dealing with an overly complex file. For example, I'll exclude advanced properties and just extract the essentials. Now I'll open the exported file. And here we can see all the current attributes of our cards: image paths, colors, names, numbers, and other properties. So essentially, this spreadsheet is a full snapshot of our current design. Now let's make a quick change. Right now, all our cards share the same background color, but let's say we want each fruit and vegetable to have a different one. In my Excel file, I already have a list of color codes, so I'll copy them, go to the corresponding column, background, color, and paste them in. Then I save the file. Now I'll import it back into Tabletop Creator. Since this file was originally exported from the project, all the column names already match perfectly, so the data mapping is automatic, no adjustments needed. In this case, these are the property and values I changed in my Excel file. Background, color. Now let's apply the import and see the result. And just like that, we've updated the entire set in seconds. No manual editing, just one change in the data applied everywhere. All right, now let's move on to another powerful feature in Tabletop Creator, variables. You can find them in the top left section, but first, let's understand what they are. Variables are basically placeholders. They allow you to replace a piece of text with something else, automatically and across your entire project. They're especially useful when you want to make your cards more visual. For example, replacing words like salty or sweet with icons or symbols that are easier to read at a glance, like an icon of a salt shaker or a sweet. So to create a variable, go to the variable section and click on New. Then, inside curly brackets, define the keyword you want to use in your design. For example, salty. Next, you assign what this variable should display. In this case, I'm going to use an icon I already have saved on my computer. You'll also see a preview of the variable. Here you can adjust things like size, position, and color. For example, adding a white tint to improve visibility. Once the variable is created, we can go back to our cards. And now, anywhere we used salty, it's automatically replaced with the icon. So instead of text, we now have a more visual and intuitive design. Now, in our case, we're using variables like salty and sweet, but some cards can have both. For example, a tomato can be used in both sweet and savory recipes. The same happens with an apple. So in those cases, we can combine variables. That means we can use multiple variables together in the same component, like salty-sweet, and both icons will appear. So now our cards have different variables shown in a more visual way. Not only our fruits, but also our animals that, if you can remember, they were attacking with +2 or +3 salts or sweets. To finish with variables, let me show you another way you can use them during the design process. For example, if you're not sure yet how you want to name something, like your players, you don't need to decide it right away. You can use a placeholder like players and continue building your game. Later on, you can define that variable and decide whether your players are called intrepid gardeners or brave farmers, and it will update everywhere automatically. And don't worry if you end up creating a lot of variables and can't remember all of them. When you're working in a text panel, you'll have direct access to the full list of variables, so you don't need to memorize anything. You can simply find the one you need and insert it. All right, we're getting close to the final step, exporting our project. Now, this isn't a fully polished game. We've built it pretty quickly to walk through the main features. We haven't gone deep into advanced properties or fine-tuned the design. But for this tutorial, it's more than enough to understand the full workflow. We'll be creating more content like this, going deeper into specific features and more advanced use cases. But for now, let's finish setting up our game. One thing we're still missing is the back of our cards. In the Pro version, we can work with double-sided components, so I'm going to quickly design a back that will apply to all the cards in this set. And of course, we can't forget the board. This is another great moment to use AI. I'm not looking for a perfect result here, just something that helps us visualize the game. So I'll generate a board with a simple idea, a farm layout with different sections, crops, and an area for the animals. For the style, I'll go with a flat illustration. That way, it feels closer to an actual board game design. Before we export, let me show you a quick bonus tip. This is something we get asked a lot. Can you create cards or components with custom shapes, or are you limited to standard rectangles and squares? And the answer is yes. You can create components in any shape. You're not limited to standard formats. This is especially useful if you're building tile-based boards. For example, games like Catan use modular tiles that can be rearranged every time you play, and you can easily create that kind of system in Tabletop Creator. Let me show you how it works. I'll start with a basic component. It could be a card, a token, or a tile. As always, we are going to edit our tile's blueprint. Here at the right side, we have the shape options, where you can transform your tile to your desired shape. We got several geometrical figures and their unique transformation settings. I'll create one quickly so you can see how it looks. And just like that, we created our own hexagonal tile. And as you can see, it does have a different shape. And it is used as any other component. You duplicate the blueprint you created so you can modify each tile. So once we've finished designing our game, the next step is usually either printing it or exporting it to a platform like Tabletop Simulator so we can start playtesting it online. When that moment comes, we simply click the button in the top left corner and go to Export. As you can see, all of our component sets are already prepared and ready to export. By default, Tabletop Creator exports everything as a PDF in ISO A4 format, but we also have several different export options available, like individual images, grid sheet images, and many additional filters and export settings. Basically, this allows us to configure the exported files exactly the way we, or a print company, need them. And honestly, this is usually one of the biggest friction points when creating a board game prototype. Preparing files correctly for printing can become super technical and time-consuming. With Tabletop Creator, this part is pretty much completely solved. Let's quickly check the PDF settings. Page size, page orientation, margins, item spacing, how you want to arrange the components on the page, and even how you want to prepare the card backs depending on how the files are going to be printed or used. For example, folded mode. This is perfect for early playtesting because you can print, cut, fold, and place the cards inside sleeves with another card behind them for support. Fast, cheap, and practical. We also have customizable cut lines, where you can adjust length, thickness, color, spacing, and other print settings depending on your printer's requirements. On top of that, you can export individual images or your entire game ready for Tabletop Simulator. This is especially useful for creators without technical experience, since preparing simulator files manually can be complicated. Usually, you only need to configure everything correctly in the grid sheet images section. As you can see, there are many export options, so before this tutorial gets too long, let's move to another powerful feature, localization management. This is extremely useful if you plan to sell or produce your game in multiple countries. For example, we're currently viewing the English version. To create a Spanish version, we can simply create a new localization setup and change the texts, names, or other language-specific content. And as you can see, switching between localizations is very simple. And that's it for this quick introduction to Tabletop Creator. Our goal is to make board game creation, from design to playtesting, simpler, faster, and more accessible for everyone. We're constantly improving the platform with new features and tutorials based on community feedback, so make sure to follow us and stay updated. And if you'd like to support us, simply sharing Tabletop Creator with other creators or friends interested in game design helps us a lot. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to see what you create next.